Your phone is being watched in ways you probably never imagined, and artificial intelligence has made it easier than ever for law enforcement to access your most private data. Most people think their phone is private. They think that because they have a password or Face ID, their information is secure. But the reality is very different, and it's getting worse by the day. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening. Right now, there are AI systems that can analyze your location data, text messages, social media posts, and even predict your future behavior. And law enforcement agencies across the country are using these tools, often without warrants, and often without you ever knowing about it. The first thing you need to understand is something called geofence warrants. This is where police use AI to identify every single phone that was in a specific location at a specific time. Let's say there's a protest, or a crime scene, or even just an area where police are investigating something. They can request data from Google, Apple, or your cell carrier that shows every device that passed through that area. Here's how it works. Your phone constantly pings cell towers and Wi-Fi networks. It's also using GPS to track your exact location for apps like Maps or weather apps. All of this data gets stored. When police issue a geofence warrant, they're essentially drawing a digital fence around a location and requesting information on everyone who entered that fence. The AI component comes in when processing this massive amount of data. These systems can analyze thousands or even millions of location pings, identify patterns, filter out irrelevant data, and narrow down to specific devices of interest. This happens in minutes, when it would take humans months or years to do the same work. But here's the scary part. You don't have to be suspected of anything to end up in this dragnet. You could just be walking past a location, driving through an area, or even have your phone in your pocket on a bus that went through the geofence, and suddenly you're in a law enforcement database. Now let's talk about something called Fog Reveal. This is a tool that's been used by law enforcement agencies across the United States, and most people have never heard of it. Fog Reveal purchases location data from apps on your phone. You know all those free apps you downloaded? The weather app, the fitness tracker, the mobile games. Many of them are selling your location data to data brokers. Fog Reveal buys this data and then uses AI to create detailed maps of where people go, who they associate with, and what their patterns of life look like. Police can query this system to see where a specific device has been going back months or even years. They can see that you go to a specific address every Tuesday night, that you stopped at a particular store, that you visited a certain neighborhood. The AI doesn't just show raw location points. It analyzes the data to identify patterns, frequent locations, associates, and even predict future movements. It can tell police that this device is likely to be at a certain location at a certain time based on historical patterns. And here's the thing that should really alarm you. In many jurisdictions, police are using these tools without warrants. The legal theory is that you've already given up your privacy by agreeing to the terms of service of these apps. Never mind that those terms of service are 40 pages of legal jargon that nobody actually reads. According to the courts in some jurisdictions, by clicking I agree, you've consented to having your every movement tracked and sold. Let's move on to facial recognition AI. You've probably heard about this one, but you might not realize how advanced and widespread it's become. Modern facial recognition systems don't just match a photo to a database. They use neural networks that can identify people from partial views, from different angles, in different lighting conditions, and even when someone is trying to disguise their appearance. Clearview AI is probably the most famous example. This company scraped billions of photos from social media, websites, and other public sources. They built a database that police can search by uploading any photo. The AI then searches through billions of images to find matches, but it gets more sophisticated. These systems can now work with surveillance cameras in real time. Imagine walking down a street. Cameras capture your face. The AI processes it instantly, runs it through databases, and identifies you before you've even walked a full block. Some systems can then track you from camera to camera, building a complete map of your movements throughout a city. And the error rates on these systems are concerning. Studies have shown that facial recognition AI has significantly higher error rates for people of color, women, and young people. This means innocent people are being misidentified, and in some cases, this has led to wrongful arrests. There have been documented cases of people being arrested and jailed based on faulty facial recognition matches. Now let's talk about your actual communications. When police want to access your text messages, emails, and call records, they traditionally needed warrants based on probable cause. But AI has created some workarounds that exist in legal gray areas. There are systems that can analyze the metadata of your communications. This is information about who you contacted, when you contacted them, for how long, and from where. The AI doesn't read your actual messages. So in some jurisdictions, police argue they don't need the same level of warrant to access this information. But here's what's frightening about metadata analysis with AI. Even without reading your messages, these systems can infer an incredible amount about you. The AI can identify your social networks, determine who your close associates are, figure out if you're having an affair, identify if you're attending religious services, determine your political affiliations, and even predict if you're likely to commit a crime in the future. There's also something called keyword warrants. This is where police request information from companies like Google about everyone who searched for specific terms. The AI processes these searches to identify people of interest. Again, you could be searching something completely innocent or for research purposes, but if it matches keywords in a criminal investigation, you could end up being investigated. Let me tell you about predictive policing AI. These are systems that claim to predict where crimes will occur or who is likely to commit crimes. Police departments feed these systems historical crime data, demographic information, social media posts, and other data. The AI then analyzes patterns and makes predictions. Some departments are using this to determine where to deploy officers. Others are using it to create lists of people who are supposedly likely to commit crimes, even if those people haven't done anything wrong yet. These people then get extra scrutiny, more frequent stops, and in some cases, visits from police telling them they're being watched. The problem with these systems is that they often perpetuate existing biases. If police have historically over-policed certain neighborhoods, the AI will predict more crime in those neighborhoods, leading to more policing, which generates more arrests, which the AI interprets as confirmation that those neighborhoods are high crime areas. It's a feedback loop that reinforces discriminatory policing practices. Social media monitoring is another huge area where AI is being deployed. Police departments across the country are using AI tools to scrape and analyze social media posts. These systems can identify faces in photos, analyze text for threatening language, map social networks, track hashtags and movements, and even analyze your tone and emotional state. Some systems claim to be able to predict if someone is planning violence based on their social media activity. The problem is that these systems often flag things like political speech, lyrics from songs, or jokes as potential threats. People have been investigated and even arrested based on social media posts that were clearly not serious threats. There's also AI that analyzes your writing style. Law enforcement can use these systems to determine if an anonymous social media account belongs to a specific person by comparing writing patterns, vocabulary, syntax, and even punctuation habits. If you think you're anonymous online, think again. These AI systems can potentially link your anonymous accounts to your real identity. Let's talk about phone extraction devices. These are tools like Celebrite and Graykey that law enforcement uses to break into locked phones and extract all the data. What's new is that these tools now use AI to organize and analyze the extracted data. When police get into your phone, they're not just looking at your messages and photos manually. The AI categorizes everything, identifies faces in photos, maps your locations, analyzes your search history, identifies apps that might contain evidence, recovers deleted files, and creates timelines of your activities. These tools can break into most phones, including iPhones with the latest security features. The encryption that you think is protecting your data can often be bypassed. And once they're in, the AI can find things you didn't even remember were on your phone. Now, you might be thinking, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. But that's not how this works. First, these systems make mistakes. They misidentify people, misinterpret data, and flag innocent behavior as suspicious. Second, privacy isn't about having something to hide. It's a fundamental right. You have a right to your personal thoughts, communications, and movements without government surveillance. Third, these tools can be abused. There have been cases of police officers using surveillance tools to stalk ex-partners, target activists, investigate journalists, or harass people they personally don't like. When these powerful AI tools exist, there's always a risk of misuse. So what can you actually do about this? Let me be clear that there's no way to be completely invisible in the modern world, but there are steps you can make it harder for your data to be collected and analyzed. First, be very careful about what apps you install on your phone. Free apps often make money by selling your data. Read the privacy policies, or at least search online to see if an app has been caught selling data. Consider paying for apps instead of using free versions if the paid versions don't harvest your data. Second, turn off location services for apps that don't absolutely need them. Does your flashlight app really need to know where you are? Go through your phone settings and disable location access for any app that doesn't have a clear need for it. Third, use encrypted messaging apps for sensitive communications. Apps like Signal use end-to-end encryption that makes it much harder for anyone, including law enforcement, to intercept and read your messages. Regular SMS texts and even iMessages can be accessed more easily. Fourth, be aware of what you post on social media. Assume that anything you post publicly can and will be seen by law enforcement if they're looking. AI makes it trivially easy to search through years of someone's social media history. Fifth, understand that your legal rights vary depending on where you are and what the situation is. In the United States, police generally need a warrant to search your phone, but there are exceptions. If you're arrested, they can search your phone in some circumstances. At border crossings, your rights are much more limited. If police ask for access to your phone, you have the right to refuse in most situations. You can say, "I don't consent to a search." They may still be able to get a warrant, but make them go through the proper legal process. Don't unlock your phone for police without understanding what rights you're giving up. Sixth, consider using a VPN when you're online. This encrypts your internet traffic and makes it harder to track what you're doing online. It's not perfect, but it's an extra layer of protection. Seventh, be aware of public cameras. We're living in an increasingly surveilled world. Facial recognition AI works best with clear photos of your face. If you're in a situation where you're concerned about surveillance, things like hats and sunglasses can make it harder for these systems to identify you, though they're getting better at working around these measures. Here's something else to understand. Many of these AI surveillance tools exist in legal gray areas. Courts are still figuring out what's constitutional and what isn't. There are cases working their way through the system right now that will determine how law enforcement can use these technologies. In some recent cases, courts have found that geofence warrants are too broad and violate the Fourth Amendment. In other cases, courts have said that historical cell site location data requires a warrant. But these rulings aren't universal, and different jurisdictions have different rules. This is why it's so important to stay informed and to support organizations that are fighting for digital privacy rights. Groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the ACLU are actively challenging these surveillance practices in court. It's also important to engage with your local government. Many of these AI surveillance tools are purchased and deployed by local police departments. In some cities, activists have successfully pushed for ordinances that limit or ban certain surveillance technologies. You have a voice in how your local police department operates. The reality is that we're in uncharted territory. AI has given law enforcement capabilities that would have seemed like science fiction just a decade ago. These tools are powerful, they're spreading rapidly, and the legal frameworks to regulate them are lagging far behind. The question we need to ask as a society is not just what police can do with these tools, but what they should be allowed to do. Just because technology makes something possible doesn't mean it's right or constitutional or in the best interest of a free society. Your phone knows everything about you. It knows where you go, who you talk to, what you search for, what you buy, what you read, who you love, what you believe, and what you're afraid of. AI makes it possible to take all of that data and turn it into a comprehensive profile of your entire life. Law enforcement agencies argue that these tools are necessary to solve crimes and keep people safe, and there's no doubt that in some cases, these technologies have helped catch dangerous criminals. But we have to balance that against the fundamental right to privacy and the danger of living in a surveillance state. Remember, powers granted to law enforcement don't get ungranted. Once these tools are normalized, once this level of surveillance becomes accepted, it's extremely difficult to roll it back. We're making decisions right now that will affect privacy rights for generations to come. So stay informed. Understand what's happening with your data. Take steps to protect your privacy. Exercise your rights. And participate in the democratic process to ensure that these powerful technologies are used responsibly, with proper oversight, and with respect for constitutional rights. The technology is here. The AI is getting smarter. The surveillance is getting more pervasive. The only question is whether we're going to accept it without question or whether we're going to demand that our rights be protected even as technology advances. Your phone is a window into your entire life. Make sure you understand who's looking through that window and what they're allowed to see. Because in the age of AI surveillance, ignorance isn't bliss. It's just ignorance. And ignorance can cost you your privacy, your freedom, and your rights.